Welcome to Shatter.
Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories. She came home from the party drunk, barefoot, and without underwear. That was the moment something in me snapped, but not loud, not explosive. It was quiet, precise, like a surgeon realizing the tumor was always there, just hidden behind a smile. She didn't even notice me at first. The front door slammed against the wall. Her heels were gone. Her hair was a mess. Lipstick smudged like a bad alibi. And under that too-tight dress? Nothing. No underwear. She stumbled past me, mumbling something about the Uber driver and laughing to herself, like this was just another wild night she'd get away with. Like I wasn't standing right there. Like I was a ghost in my own home. She didn't look at me. Not once. She headed for the kitchen, poured herself a glass of wine, like she needed more, and sat at the island, scrolling through her phone with that same lazy smile she used when she was bored of me. And in that moment, I understood everything. I didn't need answers. I didn't want explanations. I didn't even care who she had been with. The dress told me enough. The missing underwear filled in the rest. I didn't speak, didn't ask, didn't confront. I just stopped. Stopped playing my part in her story. Stopped pretending this was marriage. Stopped being the man who waited, hoped, forgave. That night, while she fell asleep face down on the couch, still in her dress, I started packing. Not clothes. Not bags. Just clarity. I pulled my name off her joint bank accounts. Disabled her access to the shared cards. Downloaded every document that mattered. Passwords. Titles. Contracts. Then I sat down at the desk in the guest room. The room she hadn't stepped into in months, and opened a folder I'd created long before tonight. Exit plan. That was the name of it. Because deep down, I think I always knew this night was coming. And now, it had a face. A moment. A timestamp. 1:13 a.m. She came home from a party with no underwear. And she would never get the chance to explain. Because I was done. Not angry. Just done. The next morning, she woke up with no memory of what she'd said, what she'd looked like, or how she'd reeked of someone else's cologne. I watched from the hallway, sipping black coffee, as she rubbed her temple like she was the one in pain. "Did I say anything stupid last night?" she asked, not even looking up. I didn't answer. I just gave her a half-smile. Calm. Blank. Enough to make her blink. She waited. When I said nothing, she mumbled, "Okay then," and went to take a shower, like nothing had happened. She thought it had passed. She thought I was still the man who swallowed everything. That was her first mistake. I started removing myself, inch by inch. No drama. No accusations. Just absence. I stopped cooking for two. Stopped doing laundry that wasn't mine. I took my toothbrush out of the shared cup in the bathroom and placed it in the guest room. She noticed that one. "Why's your toothbrush in there?" she asked one night. I was watching something on TV. I didn't even look at her. More space. She laughed nervously. "What? We're roommates now." I shrugged. "Aren't we?" The silence after that wasn't just uncomfortable. It was surgical. She started testing me. Slipping into a towel after showers. Wearing that same perfume she used to save for date nights. Leaving her laptop open just enough for me to accidentally see her Instagram DMs, full of flirty exchanges with people she swore were just friends. I didn't react. Not once. Because when you stop reacting, they stop performing. That's when the real panic begins. A few days later, she asked, "Is everything okay with us?" I met her eyes for a split second. "Define us." She didn't like that answer. She started trying harder, but not to apologize. No, to reassert control. She cooked dinner for the first time in weeks. Chicken. Rice. Her apology dish, though she never used the word. We sat in silence while the food went cold. I let her sit in the void she created. Later that night, I moved a few more things to the guest room. She watched, but said nothing. The game had changed. She just didn't know the rules anymore. Because I wasn't fighting. I wasn't screaming. I wasn't accusing. I was just extracting. Removing pieces of myself from her world so precisely, so cleanly, that by the time she realized I was gone, it would be far too late to ask me to stay. She thought I was being distant. But I wasn't distant. I was done. And she hadn't earned the right to be told. The next shift came quietly. She started waking up earlier. Making coffee. Leaving it for me on the counter like nothing was wrong. Like she hadn't cracked something between us the night she stumbled in half-dressed and clueless. I poured it down the sink. Not out of spite, out of clarity. I wasn't drinking her peace offering, not when it came steeped in arrogance. She thought I was moody, that I'd eventually snap, yell, accuse her of something just to get the fight out of my system. That's what weak men do, right? Yell, break things, beg. But I wasn't playing that role anymore. I was studying her instead, watching the cracks form behind her curated normalcy. She tried humor next. "You're really milking this whole guest room thing, huh?" she said one evening, standing in the doorway. I was folding a shirt, one of the few things I still cared to keep pristine. I didn't look at her. "It's just more efficient." She leaned against the frame, arms crossed, her smile thin. "This isn't like you." I paused. That was the first honest thing she'd said in weeks. "No," I replied. "It's not." She walked away without another word. The days bled together after that, quiet and cold. I came home later than usual. Started spending more time outside, gym, errands, long drives that weren't really about getting anywhere. I just needed air. Space. A reminder that I existed outside the shell of this marriage. One afternoon, I walked into the bedroom and saw her phone on the bed. Unlocked. Opened to messages. A name I didn't recognize at first. Nate. The messages weren't explicit, not like the ones I knew were buried deeper. But the tone? The tone told me everything. Flirty. Casual. Familiar. She was testing waters. Or maybe just keeping a backup plan warm. I didn't read past the fourth line. I didn't need to. Instead, I picked up the phone, turned it off, and set it face down. Not in anger. In control. Because now I had a name. A timeline. A direction. And I wasn't going to confront her. I was going to dismantle her fantasy piece by piece until all that was left was silence. Mine. She came home that night and asked if I'd be home for dinner the next day. Her voice soft, rehearsed. "No," I said. She waited, expecting a reason. I gave her none. Because when a man truly leaves, he doesn't slam the door. He closes it so quietly you only realize he's gone when you reach out. And there's nothing left to hold. The next week was a theater of small performances. She started wearing makeup again, even on Sundays. Perfume, too soft and familiar, like the early years. The kind she used to wear when we still kissed with meaning. But the performance was only for me. And I didn't clap. She laughed louder on the phone now. Slid into the kitchen wearing tighter clothes, lingered in doorways, tried to reclaim space with her presence. But everything about it was hollow. Not warmth, strategy. That's how you know they know. When they stop being themselves and start becoming a version of the woman they think you'll miss. She wasn't my wife anymore. She was her own cover story. And the best part? I didn't have to call her out on it. Because the truth always drips out slow, suffocating. Like that Tuesday morning, when she asked if I was coming to her friend's dinner party on Friday. Her voice was casual, but her eyes weren't. "Do you want me to?" I asked, dry. She hesitated. "Well, they'll probably ask about you." I nodded, sipping my coffee. "Then you'll have to come up with something." She blinked, stunned for a second too long. That's when it started, her unraveling. That night, I found her crying in the bathroom. Quietly. Door cracked. She didn't know I heard. She wasn't sobbing out of guilt. It was fear. The fear of losing what she thought would never leave. She still didn't know I had everything. I'd already spoken to a lawyer. Quietly. Cleanly. All the paperwork was in motion. The accounts split. The joint assets reviewed. I'd even frozen the savings account she used for her wellness retreats. That one would hit hardest. Because control is oxygen to people like her. And I was cutting off the air, one silent click at a time. The final piece fell into place when I confirmed who Nate really was. I'd run his number through a database. Real name? Nathan Caldwell. Married. 2 kids. Worked in HR for a sister company she consulted for. I smiled when I saw the LinkedIn photo. That polished, harmless look, the kind of man who thinks charm is a shield. Perfect. I wasn't going to confront him either. I was going to expose them both. Precisely. Privately. Permanently. But not yet. Because she still thought she had time. Thought I was still orbiting. Thought she could fix this with soft words and tighter dresses. And the longer she pretended, the colder I became. Because the slow kill always hurts more. Especially when they don't realize they're bleeding. Until the floor's already red. Friday came. The dinner party. I didn't go. She left in a hurry, dressed like she was trying to look effortlessly faithful. Casual but curated. Lipstick carefully not too red. Heels modest. Earrings she hadn't worn since our anniversary 2 years ago. She didn't say goodbye. Neither did I. While she was gone, I opened the safe. Pulled out the folder I'd prepared. Printed screenshots. Transaction records. Hotel check-ins. A copy of the lease agreement for the secret place she thought was off-grid, signed in her maiden name. Sloppy. I laid it all out on the dining table. Not for confrontation. For inspection. Like a detective piecing together a body that hadn't even been buried yet. By the time she returned, late, breathless, with a faint scent of wine and someone else's cologne clinging to her scarf, I was already in bed. Lights off. Laptop closed. The silence hit her first. She paused at the door, waiting for something, maybe a question, a snide remark, even a fight. Something she could respond to, react to, control. But there was nothing. Because she didn't deserve my voice. She walked into the bedroom, stopped when she saw me lying there. "You're home early," she said softly. I didn't answer. A beat passed. "Are you okay?" Still nothing. She shifted awkwardly. Then, in the quiet, she whispered, "You didn't ask me how the party was." This time, I did speak. But only 4 words. Deadpan. Even. Unblinking. I already know enough. The silence that followed wasn't just thick. It was absolute. She stood there, stunned. I didn't move. Didn't clarify. Just let it sink. Because the scariest thing you can do to someone who thrives on attention is stop needing anything from them. The next morning, she found the envelope. Not the full one. Not yet. Just a single page. A photo. Hotel lobby. Her. Him. Close. Blurred enough to feel secret. Sharp enough to be undeniable. No note. No name. No timestamp. Just the image. She didn't bring it up. But her hand shook when she poured her coffee. That night, she didn't come to bed. She sat alone in the living room, scrolling through her phone, pretending she wasn't breaking piece by piece. I walked past her on the way to the kitchen, silent. She looked up, almost hopeful. I smiled, but not kindly. And she flinched. Because sometimes, a smile says more than a scream ever could. And mine said, "You're already gone. You just haven't realized it yet." The morning after the photo, she tried something new. Kindness. Real or rehearsed, I didn't care. She made breakfast. Not toast or cereal. No. She cooked. Eggs, bacon, even fresh orange juice. The kind of effort I hadn't seen since she still said, "I love you," without flinching. I walked into the kitchen. She smiled like we were back in year 1. "Thought you might be hungry," she said, sliding a plate toward me. I looked at the food, then at her. And then, calmly, I picked up the plate, walked to the trash, and scraped it clean into the bin. No words. Just the slow screech of silverware against ceramic. She didn't speak. Neither did I. Because the truth wasn't in the food, it was in the silence. She was feeding guilt, hoping I'd chew and forget. Hoping I'd buy the fantasy long enough for her to cover the cracks. But I wasn't hungry anymore. Not for food. Not for her. Later that day, I opened a private storage unit. Just big enough. Just clean enough. I moved the first few boxes and old books, winter coats, a few files she never bothered to look through. I kept the receipts. Digital copies. Time-stamped. She wouldn't see it yet. But I was already gone. That evening, she lingered in the hallway outside the guest room. "Do you hate me?" she asked. The question came out softer than I expected. I closed the drawer I'd been organizing. Turned. "No," I said. "I just don't believe in you anymore." Her breath caught. Just a flicker. Just enough. That was the moment she understood something deeper than betrayal. She wasn't worth the fight. Not to me. She used to scream about how I never opened up, never got angry, how I bottled things up. But she liked it that way. Because control only works if the other person's still asking for permission. I wasn't. And it terrified her. She started doing what all guilty people do when they're cornered, mirror checking, rewriting history, planting seeds. "You've been distant for months," she said the next day, defensive. "Maybe this isn't all my fault." I nodded. "Maybe it isn't." She blinked. Because agreement wasn't what she wanted. She wanted a fight she could spin. Something she could survive. But I gave her nothing. And when she saw her own reflection in my silence, she didn't see a victim. She saw a ghost. Because I had already buried her version of reality. And what was left was exactly what she made. The cracks became fractures. She stopped pretending entirely after that third envelope. 3 photos. 2 receipts. 1 message she never expected me to see. "You make me feel alive. He just exists." Her words. Sent at 11:47 p.m. from our living room, while I sat 10 feet away, paying our bills and thinking I still had a wife. She didn't ask how I got them. She didn't deny it. She didn't even cry. That would have required honesty. Instead, she went quiet. Not my kind of quiet, hers. Panicked silence. The kind that vibrates behind the eyes. The kind where someone's brain is sprinting but their body is frozen. I came home the next day to find her sitting at the dining table, envelope in hand, staring at it like it was ticking. "Can we talk?" she asked. I walked past her without a word. She followed me to the kitchen. "Please," she said. "I know I hurt you, but you're not blameless either. You checked my messages. You went through my stuff." I turned to her. Calm. Cold. "You're right," I said. "That was wrong of me." She looked surprised, maybe even hopeful. But then I added, "Just like it was wrong of you to lie, cheat, and make our home a crime scene I never signed up for." Her lips parted. No sound. Just breath. That's what truth does. It takes the air before it gives answers. That night, she tried to climb into my bed. I didn't stop her. I just got up and left the room. I slept on the couch, not out of weakness, but to let her feel it. The empty space. The lack of warmth. The absence of entitlement. In the morning, I didn't speak. She did. "I miss us," she said, standing in the doorway, wrapped in one of my shirts like memory was a costume. "There is no us," I replied, brushing past her. "Just you. And what you did." She didn't follow. Not this time. Because there's a moment every liar meets, the mirror they can't look away from. Not because it shows truth, but because it shows nothing left. And that's when they collapse. Not loudly. Just quietly enough to know it's real. And I was already gone. Just taking my time on the way out. She left for work Monday morning wearing a navy dress she hadn't touched in over a year. When I once told her she looked stunning in. Fishing for sentiment. Fishing for something that no longer swam in my waters. She hesitated at the door, waiting for a goodbye. I gave her none. And the second it clicked shut, I moved. Box by box, I emptied the drawers. Essentials only. Documents. Devices. One framed photo not of her, but of my late father. The last man who taught me what staying silent in the face of disrespect does to a soul. He forgave too much. I wouldn't. I called the locksmith. Asked him to arrive at 4 p.m. She usually got home at 6. Perfect timing. By noon, I'd loaded the car with everything I needed. A duffel. A hard drive. The envelopes. My silence. Then I cleaned. Not for her, but for me. Because walking away from someone doesn't mean you leave a mess. It means you leave a message. At 3:58, the locksmith arrived. "Fresh start?" he asked, half joking. I nodded once. Something like that. By 4:12, her key no longer worked. At 4:30, I was gone. I left a single item on the dining table, the final envelope. Inside, divorce papers. Notarized. Complete. Signed by me. The only thing missing was hers. And a post-it on top. "Don't worry. You're finally free. No threats. No insults. No last words. Just truth." She called at 6:14 p.m. 3 times. I watched the phone buzz in my new apartment, face down on the desk. At 6:27, a message. "What did you do?" I didn't reply. At 6:39, another. "You changed the locks? Are you serious?" Still nothing. By 7:02, she was crying. Or pretending to. Voice notes instead of texts. "I don't understand what's happening. Please. Can we talk?" But we already had. Every second of silence was a conversation. Every locked door was closure. And every ignored message? A reminder that this wasn't revenge. It was release. Because when someone treats love like a backup plan, you don't burn their world down now. You just remove yourself from it so completely that they're left staring at the ruins they build alone. She didn't come into work the next day. I know because HR called me concerned. Said she hadn't responded to emails or calls. I told them I wasn't her keeper anymore. That was the moment her world started shrinking. By Wednesday, I'd gotten word from a mutual friend. She'd shown up at Rachel's place, red eyes, no makeup, and a story that sounded like fiction. Said I just left. No reason. No warning. No emotion. Exactly. Because when someone rewrites the ending, they'll always skip the middle, the lies, the late-night texts, the cologne she pretended I couldn't smell. She tried reaching out again. Blocked number. Different phone. New email. I just want to understand. You don't have to hate me. You were everything to me, even if I forgot how to show it. But it was too late to remember. Because forgetting me required effort. And she put that effort in. Repeatedly. Willingly. You don't accidentally end a marriage. You starve it. And I'd finally stopped feeding the illusion. Thursday, she sent one last message that almost sounded honest. I don't know who I am without you. That one made me pause. Not from pity, from realization. She never did. Because she never saw me as a person, just a structure, a financial plan, an emotional punching bag, her home base. Until I folded everything I was and left her holding the blueprint with no hands to build anything real. The next day, I got a letter from her lawyer. Too late. Mine had already filed everything. The difference? Mine came with evidence, with screenshots, with dates. Hers came with desperation and a plea to handle things privately. Of course she wanted privacy. Public shame was never part of her fantasy. But silence isn't protection, not when it follows years of quiet cruelty. I never raised my voice. But now? Now the silence had become louder than any scream she ever feared. She lost more than a husband. She lost her safety net, her image, her ability to manipulate a version of me that no longer existed. And when her attorney called to request negotiation, mine replied with 2 words. Irreconcilable conduct. The kind that leaves no questions, no bargaining, no way back. Because you can't rebuild on ashes. When the fire was started by your own hand, and the only one left watching is the man you thought would never walk away. 2 weeks after the papers landed, she showed up at my new place. I saw her through the peephole, standing there in the same coat she used to wear on weekend getaways. Back when she smiled without guilt. Back when I thought forever had a face. She knocked. Once. Twice. Then nothing. Just silence. She stayed there for maybe 5 minutes. Then she slid something under the door. A letter. I waited until I heard her footsteps disappear down the hallway before picking it up. Handwritten. Shaky. Slanted. Rushed. I don't know how to live with what I did. I still wear your shirt when I can't sleep. I'm not asking for a second chance. I just want you to know I loved you. I just didn't know how to be someone who deserved you. I folded the letter, placed it in the drawer next to the divorce decree, unread beyond the 3rd line, because nothing she could write would rewrite what I'd already buried. She wanted a man who would always stay, but she created a man who finally walked. And I didn't walk with bitterness. I walked with peace. My new apartment was smaller, quieter, but full of air, light, space. I bought a new coffee machine, changed my routines, reclaimed my mornings. I started painting again. I reconnected with people she'd isolated me from. I lived like I never knew her shadow. One day, months later, a friend told me she moved to a 1-bedroom near her sister, that she'd started therapy, that she wasn't seeing anyone, not by choice. Because men like Nate never stay when the illusion breaks. They don't build, they borrow. And when the lights come on, they vanish. She lost both of us, but only one of us stayed gone. A year passed. Then, one quiet Sunday morning, I ran into her at a bookstore. Her hair was shorter, face tired, but there was something else in her expression now. A silence that matched mine. She stepped toward me. You look. She hesitated. Different. I smiled. Calm. Measured. I am. She searched my face like she was looking for something familiar. Some crack in the armor. Some flicker of softness. But there wasn't one. Only distance. Only silence. The kind that doesn't end with closure. The kind that ends with freedom. As I turned to leave, she said one more thing. I thought you'd always love me. I didn't stop walking. But I left her with 5 words. You were wrong about that. And I didn't look back. Because real peace isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It just arrives. When you finally walk out the door and never care if they notice you're gone. This was never revenge. It was restoration. And in that silence, she finally heard everything. What would you have done in my place? If the story hit you, leave a like. And don't forget to subscribe. It only gets stronger from here.